feel?
I feel great.
Feel great?
Right.
So I've heard a lot about you and your business from Ron, and I'm excited to dig deep and hearing a little bit about your story and your journey and how you started. So our first question is going to be, can you introduce yourself and your company and just give us a brief overview of your background?
Okay. My name is Mark Broughton, and I'm the principal for BMC IT Consulting Services. We are a AI tech company located here in Columbia, South Carolina. My background starts in Silicon Valley. So I've worked at some of the biggest technology companies in the Valley, such as Oracle, Apple, Walmart.com, Cisco, in various roles, whether it's doing IT work or focused on business process or focused on hybrid type between the business and IT or engineering. Lots of experience in individual contributor roles and management roles within IT and engineering, as well as leadership roles and senior leadership roles with various positions at various companies. So extensive background working in the Valley, working in technology companies from, like I would put it, since Y2K.
Wow. So from the Valley to South Carolina, that's such a huge transition.
Yeah. What's interesting is that I had been to South Carolina a couple of times, but mainly Charleston. I think one time I've been to Columbia. But interesting footnote, my wife, who's also from California, so I'm born and raised in San Francisco, just to back up a little bit. And my wife is also born and raised in the Bay Area. And she's a nurse practitioner, but she did her undergraduate in nursing here at USC, which is like mind-boggling. So she came here as an 18-year-old and started the nursing program because nursing programs were impacted across the U.S. But there was a buddy of mine that runs a small PC in Silicon Valley. He asked, "Hey Mark, I have a company that we're invested in Columbia, South Carolina. Would you mind going there and helping these guys? You have a lot of maturity. You've just started your own company after leaving corporate America. And I think it would be good for them. It would also be good from us from an investment standpoint. If you can go there, bring a little bit of leadership, bring some structure, help them with some of the frameworks, kind of get them concentrated on the product that we feel is gonna, give the most when it comes to developing that product, as well as getting that product ready for market." So I reluctantly agreed to do it, not knowing much about Columbia, South Carolina, and coming from Silicon Valley. I'm like, well, what is tech in South Carolina versus like North Carolina? Because I spent a lot of time in RTP, I spent a lot of time in various parts of North Carolina, Charlotte. So I'm familiar with the tech scene there versus South Carolina. Do they even have a tech scene? In my 25 years of working in tech, South Carolina never crossed my mind as being like a tech hub or someplace where they had innovators and things of that sort. So it was taking a project, for a friend that actually let me. The other part of it, since my wife had lived here for 6 years, I felt like, this would be kind of a comfortable thing for both of us, right? Me starting something new, her getting refamiliar because she has friends and, things of that sort here. So that's what brought me to South Carolina.
So coming from the corporate world and stepping into entrepreneurship and running a business, everyone has different products or different audiences that they are looking to target. Had you ever thought about the government and government contracting being one of your buyers or of your service?
It's interesting. I chose to retire and just to spend more time with my wife and my kids. Right, we had this whole travel plan that we were going to do for over the course of 5 years. And we started out doing the U.S. So we did 25 states and 75 cities. And I was kind of doing some work with some friends. Hadn't really launched a company or anything. A lot of the work I was doing, advisory and consulting, I was actually doing for free. But these guys wanted more of my time. They're like, hey, Mark, if you could just give me like 20 hours a week. I'm like, I'm not really interested in doing that. He says, well, just spin up a company. So, Callie, I spin up a company so that they could actually pay me for my time. And that was kind of my introduction into, having my own business. I never had really thought about having my own business. I only thought about, I just want to enjoy my life, right? And one thing led to another. So as people knew that I had a company and I was providing these consulting services and advisory services, I just got inundated with requests with people saying, hey, Mark, I got a startup here. There's so many startups in California, the area. Hey, I got a startup here. I got a company here. I have a company that's been in business for 5 years. They're in trouble. They need some help. Can you go over and help these guys? And that's how I actually started. And it was interesting because with private companies, the process is totally different. A lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of it is connections. A lot of it is need and things of that sort. You don't even think about the government. You absolutely do not think, because private sector is dominant in Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area. So when I got here and I was working on this project, and it's like there wasn't as much private opportunity here. And lo and behold, I was at Soda City and ran into Ron. I was there with my wife and my kids, and we were just having a good time. It was probably about 90 degrees and probably 100 with the humidity, and I'm out there sweating with a t-shirt. I don't even think I had a hat on. And this guy comes up to me like, hey man, I like your shoes. I'm like, okay. I'm like, who is this guy? But it's the South. I don't know a lot about the South. So I was like, well, people here in the South are very friendly, right? So we were actually on our way home, and he and I engaged in this conversation for like an hour. And he says, well, what do you do? And I gave him my background, and I talked about the project that I'm working on here. Talked about my family life and what was important to me. And he says, have you ever considered government contracting? I was like, no, I haven't. He says, we need to connect. He says, because I think your background and what you can offer, especially coming from a technology background and highly focused on AI, because at that point I had been doing AI for 4 or 5 years. So I was like, yeah. I says, I'll combine. Of course, it took me, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks to actually get in contact with him. He says, come on down. And then he explained the APEX and what they do to help and so on and so forth. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to deal with the government. It's everything I know about the government is too complex, right? It's just kind of riddled with slowness when it comes to trying to understand how to, get government contracting, how the awards are actually handled and so on and so forth. How do you even look at a solicitation? I mean, some things I knew about the government, but it was like, that's a very, very difficult process. So after our initial conversation, I was lukewarm to the whole ideal about getting into government contracting, but Ron was so encouraging that it's like, you break this down in pieces. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this daunting thing that you have to try to tackle. Here's how you tackle it. He says, here are the things that you need to do. So it's like, you need to get a capability statement. What the heck is a capability statement? It needs to be 1 page. And I remember sending over my first capability statement to Ron, and he was like, that's not gonna be. I was so discouraged. I was just like, because they wanted to fit everything in one sheet, right? And like my entire career, everything that I've done, everything that all of the capabilities of my company, what we can do, how we can add value to the company and to the government and so on and so forth. And I was just like, I can't put it on 1 page. I couldn't. And he says, yes, you can. That was the challenge, right? Yes, you can. So that's how I first got introduced to the APEX organization. That's how I got introduced to Ron, so to speak, and the APEX team, which is just an absolutely phenomenal group of individuals that's working under Ron's direction for APEX. It's a great, great team. So since working with the South Carolina APEX, we have landed an award, which we're very, very grateful for, through the solicitation process, which the South Carolina APEX team helped us through. I never even did a response to a solicitation. Ron and his team were, paramount in helping us to understand how do you actually go after an award? How do you actually respond to an award? And the APEX team, they were critical in like what we put together and saying, hey, you have to do it like this. Don't miss this. Don't miss that. And literally on our first solicitation that we responded to, we got an award for the first solicitation, which is, Ron would say, is unheard of. Right? There's typically, you fail a couple of times before you actually get an award, right? So it was that first solicitations, but the diligence of the APEX team and Ron ensuring that we responded the way we were supposed to respond so that we did get acceptance. Just getting an acceptance, right? Not necessarily, winning the award, but just going through the system and saying, hey, we've accepted, your proposal was a huge win for us. And we could not have done it without the help of Ron and the South Carolina APEX team. We just could not have done it. We just did not have the expertise. We didn't go out and solicit some, solicitation writers or anything like that. It was primarily 100% working with the South Carolina APEX team.
I love that. I love that sometimes we think that we need to hire these solicitation experts, but I think South Carolina APEX and the assistance that they provided you speaks to the value in working with a program that has
they are the experts. They are the experts, right? So going to a third party, and kind of in the back of my mind, and I don't mean to cut you off, but kind of in the back of my mind, I kind of felt that way. I had that intuition, like, talking to Ron and talking to his team, like, these guys are the real experts. When we look at a solicitation together, and I says, well, hey, Ron, this is going to be my response to the solicitation. Hey, Mark, you're missing this, and this. I mean, just like right away. I mean, they just knew they are the experts, which is amazing. Understanding that will help facilitate the solicitation process and the proposal process than the South Carolina APEX team led by Ron. And I spoke with several third-party organizations, and I kind of compared and benchmarked what the South Carolina APEX team could do versus what these third-party, and it's night and day.
Wow.
Night and day.
So when we think about the opportunity that you just received, winning your first government contract on the first try, what does that mean for you and your business?
It's huge. It's huge. I think one of the things that I would highlight is that they're longer term contracts. They're very structured, and like, here's what we need from you. Here's the capability you have. Here's the deliverable that we're going to bring. Here's the change that's going to happen, which to me is a lot different than in the private sector, where there's a lot of ambiguity, right? So it's a lot better to understand what you're going to provide. And this is where the excitement for us comes in, right? So we know what we need to provide to the government. When we get contracts on the private side, we can spend 2 or 3 months trying to figure out what they want. So if I could win more government contracts, I would be happy. My team would be happy. The company would be more stable. We'll have, growth opportunities, which is important, right? Especially in this space, in the AI space, growth opportunities. And I think it helps us to build the foundation here in Columbia, South Carolina. That too is more important to me than the private sector. So it's huge. Is possible. I'm so confident now in our ability to do it the right way based on the work that we've done with the South Carolina APEX team that I'm not even looking at the private sector the way I looked at it before. So when I look at things that we're going to do proposals on, before it was probably 90-10, 90% private and 10%, government. That's shifted. I'm like 70 to 80% of the proposals are government proposals. And now I'm only doing like 10 or 20% private because I have that confidence now that I can do this. We can be competitive in our proposals. And again, 100% of that is due to the work that and collaboration that we've done with the South Carolina APEX organization. It's just boosted our spirits, just boosted our confidence. The collaboration is meaningful, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the South Carolina APEX team and Ron and, for the foreseeable future. I'm very happy.
So what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs pursuing government contracting?
Go see Ron. I mean, that's a short answer. But I think first and foremost is trusting the capability of the South Carolina APEX organization. Trusting it. And if you do that and you're diligent in working with them, you're taking their advice, you're doing the things that they're asking or requiring you to do, you can have a lot of success. You can have a lot of success, but you got to be patient. The one thing with government contracting is you have to be patient, and if you have patience and you let them guide you and help you, you're going to be successful. I'm the perfect example of that.
For those that may be interested in getting connected with you and BMC, do you have a website or a LinkedIn?
Yep, I have a website, BMC IT Consulting Services. Go on our website and you see all the good stuff that we're doing, the services that we provide. We also have the LinkedIn page, BMC IT Consulting Services. You can go on our LinkedIn page and leave a message, or you can reach out. We have a field on our website where you can reach out to us, and if you just want to ask questions or you're just curious about what we do, how we do it, drop a line, right? I'm not going to give out my personal phone number, but you can definitely go on our site and we will respond, and we respond relatively quickly.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and we appreciate you for allowing South Carolina APEX to be a part of your government contracting journey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, thank Ron and the South Carolina APEX team. We could not have done it without them. Very appreciative. All right.
That was